poor girl, forced to marry a disabled man. What should have been the most humiliating day of her life turned into the moment everyone discovered a shocking truth. Because sometimes God hides miracles where no one expects to find them. This is the story of Sofia, a 22-year-old woman who grew up on the outskirts of a small inland town. The daughter of a single mother who worked as a cleaner in 3 different houses, Sofia intimately knew the bitter taste of poverty. Her clothes were always secondhand. Her shoes, mended so many times they looked more like a patchwork quilt stitched with hope. But there was something in Sofia that poverty could never steal. Her bright eyes, full of dreams that stubbornly survived despite everything. She dreamed of studying nursing. She wanted to help people, care for those in need, make a difference in the world. Every night, after helping her mother with household chores, Sofia studied by the dim light of an old lamp. Devouring used books she managed to borrow from the municipal library. It was her way of resisting, her silent way of saying she wouldn't just be another statistic of misery. But life on the outskirts rarely respects dreams. When Sofia's mother fell gravely ill, everything changed. Hospital bills began to pile up like heavy clouds before a storm. The cleaning wages barely covered rent and food, let alone the expensive medicines the illness required. Sofia had to abandon her studies to work. She started as an assistant in a bakery, waking at 4 in the morning to knead dough while her dreams crumbled like flour between her fingers. It was then that the proposal emerged. Mrs. Margarita, owner of one of the houses where Sofia's mother worked, appeared with a solution that sounded more like a sentence. Her distant nephew needed a wife, a 35-year-old man who lived reclusively on a farm on the outskirts of town. There was a detail, of course. There's always a detail in these stories. The man was disabled, a wheelchair user since a childhood marked by a degenerative disease that had stolen the movement in his legs. "It's a good opportunity, dear," said Mrs. Margarita with that condescending tone of someone doing a favor. "He can afford all your mother's medical expenses. You would have financial security, a home, food on the table. What more could a girl in your situation want? What more could she want? Perhaps love, perhaps choice, perhaps the dignity of not being traded like merchandise in a business deal disguised as a marriage." But when her mother cried out in pain that night, clutching her chest and begging for another pill that Sofia couldn't afford, the answer became devastatingly clear. She didn't have the luxury of choice. "I accept," Sofia whispered 3 days later, the words weighing on her tongue like molten lead. The news spread through the community like wildfire. Neighbors whispered at their gates. Former schoolmates looked on with a mix of pity and secret relief that they weren't in her shoes. Sofia overheard fragments of conversations as she walked through the streets. Poor girl. So young and beautiful, wasted on a cripple. At least she's solving her mother's problems. Sometimes you have to swallow your pride. They say he's strange, lives locked away on that farm. No one really knows what he's like. Sofia absorbed every word like blows, but she kept her head high. She'd made her choice. Now she had to live with it. But there was something no one told Sofia. Something about the man she was about to marry. The first time she saw him was 2 weeks before the wedding, during a formal visit to the farm. Sofia expected to find a decadent, abandoned, sad place, much like the circumstances that led her there. Instead, she found a surprisingly well-maintained property. The gardens were trimmed. The house, though simple, was impeccably clean. There were books everywhere, hundreds of them stacked on shelves that covered entire walls. And there he was. Miguel had dark hair, starting to gray at the temples, deep eyes that seemed to carry stories Sofia could never imagine. He was in a wheelchair, yes, but there was something in his posture that didn't convey weakness, something hard to define, a silent dignity, an intelligence that shone when he spoke. "Hello, Sofia," he said with a calm, almost gentle voice. "Thank you for coming. I know this situation is complicated for you." She blinked, surprised. He was the first person to acknowledge how messed up the whole situation was. "I want you to know," he continued, "that I don't blame you if you want to back out. I perfectly understand that no one dreams of marrying someone like me. Someone like me." The words hung in the air. Sofia realized he carried his own wounds, not just physical ones, but the invisible ones. The ones society inflicts on those it considers different, imperfect, unworthy of love. "I need to do this," Sofia replied, more to herself than to him. "My mother needs her medicine." Miguel nodded slowly. "I know. And you will have them. All of them. No conditions, no demands. Your mother will be cared for, regardless of what happens between us." Sofia looked at him, confused. "Why are you doing this?" A sad smile crossed Miguel's face. "Because I know what it's like to be invisible, to be written off before you even get a chance to prove yourself. And because, well, maybe I'm tired of being alone." In that moment, something shifted. It wasn't love at first sight, nor an instant fairy tale. It was something more subtle. A mutual recognition of two souls wounded by the world, finding each other in impossible circumstances. But Sofia didn't know yet. She still didn't understand. The entire town had Miguel figured out, or so they thought. The poor disabled guy. The man written off by fate. The hermit who had to pay for companionship because no woman would have him otherwise. How foolish they were. In the following 2 weeks, as the simple wedding preparations took place, Sofia visited the farm a few more times. They were strange, formal, uncomfortable encounters. But with each visit, she noticed small details that didn't make sense. The books weren't paperback mysteries or romance novels. They were serious stuff: philosophy, economics, history, some in English, others in French. And he'd read them all, she could tell from all the notes in the margins. The house had a locked office. Sofia only saw the door once, accidentally ajar. There were computers inside, expensive equipment, screens flickering with graphs and numbers she didn't understand. And there was the way Miguel spoke. Not like an ignorant recluse, but like someone who understood the world deeply, who saw connections where others saw only isolated fragments. "Have you ever thought about going back to school?" he asked one afternoon as they drank tea on the porch. Sofia felt her chest tighten. "I can't afford it. Not a chance." What if that wasn't true anymore? She looked at him, waiting for the catch, the hidden angle in those gentle words. But there was nothing, just genuine sincerity. "I'd like to," she admitted softly. "I wanted to be a nurse, to take care of people. But that's just a silly dream now." "Dreams aren't silly," Miguel said firmly. "They are the only thing that keeps us human when everything else tries to reduce us to less than that." Sofia didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to people taking her dreams seriously. Days passed. The wedding approached. The town continued to whisper, preparing to witness what everyone considered a foregone tragedy. The poor girl sacrificed on the altar of necessity. The disabled man buying the companionship society denied him. But Sofia began to notice things that made her mind reel with unanswered questions. How did a guy everyone thought was broke have a library that would make most universities jealous? How was he fluent in 3 languages? How did that locked office have the tech setup of a sophisticated command center in the middle of rural farmland? And most importantly, why did his eyes shine with a sharp intelligence that violently contrasted with the image of a helpless man everyone painted of him? On the night before the wedding, Sofia could barely sleep. Lying on the thin mattress in her modest room, she stared at the cracked ceiling and wondered what kind of story she had stumbled into. Her mother, already feeling better with the first treatments Miguel had paid for in advance, touched her face tenderly. "You are so brave, my daughter," she whispered. "Braver than I ever was. Courage. That's what everyone called it." But Sofia knew the truth. It wasn't courage. It was desperation disguised as strength. Meanwhile, at the farm, Miguel was also awake. Sitting before one of the office screens, he watched numbers float across the display. Numbers that represented fortunes, investments, companies, an invisible empire built in the solitude of someone the world had decided to forget. Tomorrow. That's when everything would change. That's when his carefully built facade would finally crack open. Because Miguel held a secret that the entire town, with its hasty judgment and condescending pity, was about to discover in the most shocking way possible. The poor girl thought she was sacrificing herself. The town thought it was witnessing a tragedy, but no one knew what everyone in the village was about to discover. As the wedding day dawned, Sofia put on the simple dress she had managed to borrow. She looked in the mirror and saw a joyless bride, a young woman carrying the weight of choices that were never truly hers. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "Here we go." But as she prepared to walk down the aisle, as the town gathered to witness what everyone considered a marriage of convenience born of misfortune, no one imagined that day would change everything. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary truth hides exactly where no one thinks to look. And sometimes, the man everyone underestimates is precisely the one who is about to prove the whole world wrong. And that's when the real lesson begins. Separation? It's an illusion. Everything we're told about being powerless against injustice, everything we're taught to just accept, it's all a story we tell ourselves, not the truth. Just the way we learn to see it. And then, as everything's about to begin, time holds its breath. The elder, a woman whose eyes hold decades of stories, raises her hands. The candlelight catches the embroidered patterns on her ceremonial robe, dancing shadows across the chapel walls. When she finally speaks, her voice isn't just sound. It's something deeper. It's the weight of generations speaking through her. Sofia feels her heart beating so hard she's sure everyone can hear it. Her small, trembling hands are enveloped in his. And even through the involuntary tremor he can't quite control, she feels something more. Warmth, steadiness, a silent strength that contradicts everything her eyes see. The ceremony begins with the burning of incense. Not the common incense anyone can buy at the market, but a special blend, prepared by the elder herself. The aroma that spreads through the chapel is complex, multi-layered. There's sandalwood, yes, but also something deeper, something earthy and ancient, something that makes Sofia suddenly remember, for no apparent reason, all the women in her family who stood before similar altars, making similar promises. The elder sets an ancient bronze bowl in the center of the altar. It's tarnished with age, blue-green patina creeping across its edges. She pours water from a sacred spring into it, water gathered at dawn that very morning. Then, with practiced movements that seem guided by centuries of tradition, she adds 3 white lotus petals. Pure. Floating like tiny boats on an endless sea. The lotus, the elder begins, her voice filling every corner of the chapel, grows from mud, from darkness, from what is dirty and impure. And yet, when it emerges into the light, it is immaculate, untouched by the filth from which it came. Sofia watches the petals slowly spin in the water. There is something in these words that seems directed not only at her, but at the man beside her. She glances at him quickly, and for a fraction of a second, believes she sees something in his eyes. Something that is not pain, not shame, it is understanding, recognition. The elder picks up a long red silk ribbon so long its ends pool on the floor. This ribbon is the red thread of fate. You can't see it, you might not understand it, but there are reasons 2 people meet. Reasons that go way beyond what we can see or think we understand. As she speaks, Sofia can't help but wonder, why did he say yes? Why would a man in his condition, a man who could have simply disappeared from the village, simply existed on the fringes of society, accept this arranged marriage? He had nothing to gain, or did he? The elder begins to wrap the red ribbon around their wrists, physically binding them. First his, then hers, then both together, creating an elaborate knot that is both beautiful and impossible to untie without help. And it is at this moment, with her hands literally tied to his, that something extraordinary happens within Sofia's mind. Something clicks. A door opens in her mind. She can't explain why, can't say how. But suddenly she's not seeing what everyone else sees. She's seeing something else, potential. The atmosphere shifts. You can't quite put your finger on it, but it's real. The air feels different, like that moment right before a storm hits. Like how the light changes just before sunset. He, the man who is about to become her husband, closes his eyes for a moment. And in that brief instant of privacy, in that space where no one else can see him, his thoughts return. They return to the moment everything changed. They return to the accident that others think destroyed him, but they don't know the whole truth. How could they? 8 years back, in a city far from here, he was a different person. Different walk, different voice, different life entirely. He was a sharp engineering student at a top university with a bright future mapped out. Everything was going according to plan. Then came the accident. The car, the hospital, the doctors with their somber faces and their carefully chosen words. Spinal cord injury, neurological damage, uncertain prognosis. But here's what the doctors didn't see, what no one saw. In the agonizing months of rehabilitation that followed, when everyone thought he was just learning to survive with his new limitation, he was doing something more. He was observing, learning, studying. He noticed everything. How people treated disabled folks. How their eyes would look away, uncomfortable. How their voices would shift too loud, too soft, too condescending. How in people's minds a physical disability became a mental one too, a moral one. And somewhere in that observation, a seed was planted, an idea, a possibility. Then his family got wiped out by a con. His father vanished in shame. His mother got sick from heartbreak. That's when he decided he'd walk away from who he was, from the expectations, the promises, the bright future that didn't exist anymore. He'd disappear, become invisible, and in that invisibility, he'd find what he was really looking for. So he found this village, small, out of the way, a place where nobody dug into your past or asked too many questions. He used his disability as a mask, let people see what they wanted to see. A broken guy, a charity case, someone harmless and ordinary. While they watched what they expected to see, he rebuilt. Not physically, mentally, he rebuilt his strategy, his empire, his future. When the marriage proposal came through the village grapevine, his first instinct was to turn it down. But then he learned about the girl, Wei's daughter, the one no one wanted. A man desperate enough to sell his own child. He saw something different in her story. Not another victim, a mirror, 2 people written off. 2 people judged by someone else's rules. 2 people trying to survive in a system that had already decided they didn't matter. Maybe there's another path. Not giving up, not fighting alone. Maybe there's partnership. He opens his eyes, returning to the present, to the chapel, to the incense, to the elder still weaving her red ribbon around their joined wrists. And that's when Sofia really sees him for the first time. Not out of pity, not out of obligation. Something different. Something she doesn't have a name for yet. Curiosity, maybe. The need to know who he really is beneath everything everyone says. Their eyes lock, for just a second. But in that second, something shifts between them. Understanding. A question asked silently, an answer waiting to come. The elder, who misses nothing despite her advanced age, smiles. It's a small smile, almost imperceptible, but it's there. Now, she says quietly, her voice more intimate. We do the part that matters, the part most people skip over. But it's the heart of all this. She picks up a small wooden box from the altar. The wood is dark, almost black, polished by generations of hands. When she opens it, inside are two small mirrors. Ancient, with silver frames so old they are almost black. These mirrors have been in wedding ceremonies for 2 centuries, the elder says. And the old ways teach us, when mirrors face each other, they show more than just faces. They show the truth. She places one mirror in Sofia's bound hands, the other in his bound hands. Look at each other through these mirrors. And I'll ask you a question, a real one. Not what your family wants to hear, not what the village wants. I want the truth. Your truth. The silence in the chapel is absolute. Even the sounds from outside, the birds, the wind, seem to have stopped to listen. The elder takes a breath. Here's the question. Do you accept this marriage knowing it will change you? That it will transform who you are? That it might expose truths you'd rather keep hidden? Sofia's heart pounds. There's something in that question that isn't just ceremony. It sounds like a warning. She looks at the mirror in her hands, looks at her own reflection, distorted by the age of the glass. Who does she see there? The girl her father sold? The woman she is trying to become? Or someone completely different? And then she slowly raises the mirror, until it faces his mirror. For a moment, all she sees is mirrors reflecting mirrors, light bouncing back and forth endlessly. It's dizzying, mesmerizing. Then through all the reflections, she sees his eyes, and in them, really sees them for the first time. There's complete clarity. No hesitation, no weakness, just determination, intelligence, purpose. And suddenly, like a flash, she understands. This man isn't what she thought. He's not a broken piece of something that used to work. He's different. He chose this. But why would anyone choose this? The mirror trembles in her hands. Not much, just enough to create ripples in the reflections. The elder observes everything, sees everything, understands more than she shows. So, she says, her voice breaking the spell of the moment, are you ready to answer? But before anyone can speak, something happens. Something no one expected. A sound coming from the back of the chapel. The door opening. Footsteps. Heavy. Urgent. Everyone turns. It's Sofia's father, Wei. His face red with effort, or emotion, or both. Stop, he says, his voice hoarse. Stop the ceremony. Murmurs erupt among the guests. Sofia's mother stands, alarmed. The elder frowns, her expression stern at the interruption. But Wei is not looking at them. He is looking at the groom. At the man everyone calls disabled. At the man who is about to marry his daughter. And there is something in his eyes. Something Sofia cannot identify. Fear, anger, or recognition? You, says Wei, pointing a trembling finger. I know who you are. The silence that follows is deafening. Sofia looks at the man beside her. Her wrists are still bound to his. The mirror is still in her hands. And in his eyes now she sees something new. Not panic. Not denial. Acceptance. As if this moment, this interruption was something he had always known would come. He stands up, and as he does, something shifts. Not physically, he still trembles. Still struggles to maintain balance. But there's something in the way he rises that is different. There is intention. There is control. There is power. And in that moment, the disabled man everyone pitied stands straight and tall, revealing a truth that would shatter every assumption in that village. My name is Gabriel Henrique Almeida Montero, he says, his voice filling the chapel like a bell ringing out. I'm an engineer. I'm an investor. I run 3 international companies, and I've spent the last 8 years here, invisible, to learn what everyone's forgotten. The reaction is instantaneous. Gasps of disbelief. Women bringing their hands to their chests. Men who had mocked him moments ago now frozen in shock. When I lost the use of my legs, Gabriel says firmly, the world threw me away. My family, my friends, my whole career, all gone. But in that darkness, I figured out something. That being disabled doesn't make you less. It shows you who people really are. He looks at Sofia with a tenderness that makes her heart leap. So I came here. I lived as a disabled man to see how you'd treat someone you thought was broken. Turns out, you're the broken ones. Sofia's father's face pales. You, Gabriel says, pointing at Wei. You sold your own daughter, called it compassion, but you just wanted her gone. Wanted her to be someone else's problem. He then turns to the crowd. And all of you, his voice thunders, you felt sorry for me. But here's the truth. I have what you'll never have. Character, intelligence, a real purpose. While you're out here trading in misery and greed, I built an empire. I watched you, and I learned what broken really looks like. Gabriel signals. A screen drops from the ceiling, cutting-edge tech hidden the whole time. Documents appear. Property deeds. Bank accounts with numbers that make people gasp. I could have paid for Sofia's medicine any time, he says. But she deserved better than that. She deserved to choose someone for who they are, not what they have. Money comes and goes. Character? That's forever. Gabriel then extends his hand to Sofia, and against all expectations, she moves without hesitation. She places her hand in his. Sofia, he says, looking into her eyes. You're the strongest person I know. You gave up everything for your mother, accepted being thrown away without fighting. But that ends now, right here, in front of everyone. I promise you this, it wasn't for nothing. You deserve to be chosen for love, and that's what I'm doing. I'm choosing you, not because I have to, not out of pity, because you're extraordinary. Everyone's crying now. Joy, sure, but mostly shame, regret. They're finally seeing what they did, and when Gabriel kisses her, it's more than a promise. It's a statement. It's a quiet revolution. Against every prejudice, every snap judgment, every time society decided someone wasn't good enough. And there, in that small chapel, something shifts in the atmosphere. It's not just a wedding, it's a redemption. His words hung in the air, and the room shifted. People's faces changed. The woman who'd pointed her finger now covered her mouth in shock. The merchant who'd mocked him wouldn't look up, shame written across his face. And everyone was crying. Not just Sofia. The whole community finally facing what they'd done. Because that moment wasn't just about two young people. It was about all of us. About every time we judge by appearances. About every time we confuse poverty with unworthiness. About every time we allow fear and prejudice to blind us to a person's true value. But the story wasn't over yet. Because the people who had caused all that suffering were still there. And justice, true justice, was just beginning to be served. Sofia's father tried to disappear into the crowd, but there was nowhere to hide anymore. Everyone who'd respected him could see the truth now. He didn't protect his daughter. He sold her. For money. For his pride. To cover his own debts. I just wanted what was best for her, he whispered. But he knew he was lying. Real love would have meant letting her choose. Trusting her. Choosing her over what people thought. And the community? The community had to face the hardest truth of all. They had judged wrong. Completely. Terribly. The men who'd mocked him, called him a desperate loser, suddenly got it. He had something they never would. Real integrity. Real courage. The kind of strength that comes from doing what's right when everyone's telling you not to. And it was in this moment of collective justice that the true story of those two young people could finally be told. Because what no one knew, what the community itself hadn't realized, was that this forced marriage had been, paradoxically, the best and the worst thing that had ever happened to them. For Sofia, what should have been her worst day became her best. For the first time, someone chose her. Not because they had to. Not because they felt sorry for her. Because he saw what she really was. Saw her strength. Saw her mind. Saw her as a complete person. For the first time, she wasn't a burden. Wasn't broken. She felt seen. Valued. Human. Later, alone together, she told him, "My whole life, I thought I'd never be good enough. But you changed that. You made me see my worth was never about what I could do or what people thought. It was always there." For Gabriel, it was just as powerful. He'd always been invisible. The poor kid. No future, no hope. His whole life, people looked right through him, like he didn't exist. Like his worth was just a number in a bank account. That day changed everything. By choosing what was right instead of what was easy, by choosing to care instead of fitting in, he realized something deep. His worth was never about what anyone thought. He'd always had dignity. He'd always had strength. He just needed to claim it. "You gave me courage," he told her. "Courage to finally be who I should have been. To stop saying sorry for existing. To stop taking scraps and demand better." And from their union came something rare. Real partnership. Real respect. Love built on more than attraction or convenience. Built on understanding what they'd both gone through. Both judged. Both written off. Both knowing they deserved better. Over time, something amazing happened. The couple everyone had mocked became a lesson. Real love, not for show. Not about how things look. Built on real respect, real admiration, and actually caring about each other's lives. And the community? The community learned the hardest and most necessary lesson. They learned that disability isn't a flaw. It's just a different way of living. And often, the people who face the hardest battles end up with the strongest character. They learned that being poor doesn't make you worthless. A broke person with integrity is worth more than 1,000 rich people without conscience. Who you are always matters more than what you have. And most importantly, they learned that all the things they cared so much about, appearances, status, money, none of it mattered. It was empty, shallow, useless for measuring whether someone's worth anything at all. It was the elder who said it, the one who'd been there for generations. She called everyone together one final time. And when she spoke, it was with the weight of a lifetime of knowing better. "Our ancestors taught us this," she said firmly. "A person's real value, it's here." She pointed to her heart. "In who you are, in what you choose when nobody's watching." But we forgot. We got proud. Thought we could just look at someone and know their worth. We were wrong. She looked everyone in the eye, everyone who'd hurt that couple. But they reminded us. They showed us something important. When we forget what our ancestors knew, when we trade real values for empty status, we don't move forward. We go backward, to the most basic kind of cruelty. Tears flowed freely now, not from sadness but from understanding, from painful but necessary growth. In that same square where everything went wrong, something new started. A promise. No more judging people by what's on the outside. No more thinking someone's disability means they can't think or feel or matter. No more hiding cruelty behind tradition or family. Now there's a monument in that square. Nothing fancy, simple. 2 hands carved in stone holding each other. One whole, one missing fingers, but both strong, both beautiful, both necessary. And carved into the base. Your worth isn't in what you have, it's in what you do with it. This isn't just their story, it's ours. Every time we judge someone at first glance, every time we let prejudice stop us from seeing what's real, every time we care more about fitting in than about being human. But it's also about hope. If they could change, if people who'd done real harm could learn better, then there's hope for all of us. We can get past surfaces, can care more about who someone is than what's easy, can build something where nobody's worth is measured by what's wrong with them, but by what's right inside them. If this story got to you, made you think about how you judge people, reminded you what real compassion looks like, share it. The best lessons are the ones we pass forward. Subscribe for more stories that break down our assumptions. Stories that remind us the basic truth. Everyone has real worth, no matter their circumstances. It's not something you can measure, just something you have to recognize. Leave a comment. What would you have done? If you were Sophia? If you were Gabriel? If you were that village? We only get better at being human through honest reflection. This is everybody's story, not just theirs. It's about how we see each other. And the good news? Every day we get to do it better. With more honesty, more wisdom, more care. Let your choices say who you really are. Not who you look like, but who you actually are.